Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us tonight. It's hard to believe it's already November. This is our third meeting of our society here at ASHRAE. We have a very busy night ahead of us. We are very fortunate. Some freak chance events happened. We actually are delighted to have a special guest with us tonight. I'm going to begin by introducing the board and the executive. Please stand up and call your name. I'm going to start with Jacob Hubb, Board of Governors. Chris Raleigh, Board of Governors. Celine Barbeau, Board of Governors. Peter Shawwood, Board of Governors. Joe Delaval, Board of Governors. Adrienne Matani, Secretary. Adam Boons, Treasurer. Adam was here, but he subject for a minute. Aaron Dobson, President-elect. And those who don't know me, I am Daniel Redmond. I'm the Board President for the 2018-2019 ASHRAE year. Now I mentioned that we have some very special guests with us tonight. It just so happens that Sheila Hayter, the President of ASHRAE Society, was in Ottawa on a Tuesday, on a third Tuesday, which happened to coincide with our program meeting. So with us we have Sheila Hayter, the President of ASHRAE Society for 2019. We also have, now Daryl Boyce is going to be here later, is what I was told, and Chuck Woolidge is also in Ottawa. He's the Society Treasurer this year. He's not coming tonight, but Sheila and Daryl and Chuck were meeting with the House of Commons today. And this was all organized by Alice Gaines. Alice, if you could, there you go. Alice is tremendous part of helping to make this happen. So thank you so much. And I mean, you were a big part of setting up the meetings today with ASHRAE and with the federal government in Canada. Thank you. We also have Jeff Clark, who is the DRC, the Director and Regional Chair for Region 2. I would like to call upon Adrienne Matani to come up and introduce the guests.
Hi everybody, so the guests for this evening are James Collins, Nicholas Laval, Felix Vanco, Eli Renee, Bianca, excuse me, Eddie Chicaro, Mark Desmoines, Jim Henry, Edward Blanco-Stedge, Jordan Gellmas, Matt Lafavoise, Sam Vanclav, Jeff Prevost, Mike Lamar, Jicheng Guan, and Daryl Nosbury. Thank you.
And now I'd like to call upon Andrew Brown to come up and introduce the new members.
Hello everyone. So last month I missed, so I just wanted to come full circle and give you guys the October members. So we'll do October and November. In October we had Zachary Grant here, Kyle Branton, Bushin Young Hassanov, Patrick O'Mara, Ala Salah, and then for November we have David Ball, David Mansett, Brad Neitzel, Jeff Garvis, Zaid Arif, Ross Ferris, Brian Long. Yes.
Thank you, everyone. And our theme for the evening is students. So Elizabeth Primo, you can come up and talk students. There you go.
So as Dan said, tonight's theme is students. I'd like to start by welcoming our students from the CEGEP, bienvenue, and also welcoming all other students that attended today. Second of all, we have a visit to Modern Niagara by a group of Earl of March students coming up this month. Tomorrow we have an event at Carleton University where Sheila here will be speaking to a group of students as well. Hopefully it's going to be very well attended. And tomorrow, I know most of us are bowling, but there's also an event at the Hub in Ottawa from the Carleton Energy Group from 6 to 9. If you want more information about that, just contact Dan or myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Our tabletops for the evening, we have two. If I could get, well, we'll get somebody to come up from Ottawa to talk about this fancy issue.
Thank you. If you haven't already stopped by our table over here, we have some lovely giveaways that are energy related. So we're just here to sort of spread the word that our program is still and strong, and despite some cuts to environmental programs in our province, this one has not been touched. So we still have a couple years left in our framework, so please don't shy away from all your energy savings projects. Please reach out to us as you start planning new replacements and upgrades to your facilities. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noah, and thanks for bringing free stuff to help save energy. Second, I'd like to call upon Tim to come up and talk about S&P Canada. That'd be great to say.
Thank you so much. S&P Canada is a Canadian arm of an international company, Solar Cloud Ventilation, and our headquarters is in Spain. We are one of the world's largest ventilation manufacturers, but we don't have that big a presence here in North America, which is something that I've been trying to do over the last few years to build that up. So I try to come into meetings like this to show our products. We have a full line of commercial and residential ventilation products, so if there's anything that you ever need, please feel free to give us a call. I live here in Ottawa and work across the country, but we'll be happy to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Definitely some things over there as we take a look at. Last, I'd like to call upon Mike to come up and talk about bowling. Liz mentioned bowling, and everybody loves bowling, right? Everybody owns bowling shoes, right? They might come back.
It's just to serve as a reminder for everyone who signed up for the ASHRAE Bowling. It's being held tomorrow night at the America Bowling Lanes, just over the Hunt Club. Registration starts at 6:30. The games and food start at 7 o'clock, and bowling shoes will be provided.
Unless you happen to have your own bowling shoes, right? The only other one I would like to call upon is Aaron Dobson. If you want to just give a quick overview of research promotion and let us know about the raffle that's happening tonight, that'd be great.
Thank you. So tonight we have two draws for research promotion. So every month we raffle off tickets that are donated by the community. This month we have 2 tickets in the suite. Ottawa Senators versus Columbus, donated by Climate Works. And also we have 4 tickets, Ottawa versus New York Rangers, donated by Brett Marchand. So tickets are $20 for 5. All money goes to ASHRAE Research Canada. Pretty much runs out of goal for the end of the year. We have a few more donations that are coming in. We're basically on track to hit our 30% end of year goal, which is about $10,000. So a lot of money to raise so far, and this year's going to be another stellar year. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aaron. And if anybody hasn't yet purchased tickets, please find Aaron. He's seated over here, and we will be drawing those tickets in about an hour and a half. If you don't have cash, there is a vending machine here, and I'll be happy to direct you to the front entrance. Please donate generously during the hour. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy your dinner, and I'll leave you to that for now. And I'll talk to you shortly when we start getting going with the program. Thank you.
This is for the 2 suite tickets for the Columbus game.
All right, 987 6223.
Second takes will get Daryl to the draw.
Okay, 987-6186.
Yeah, right.
Thank you very much, Aaron, and thank you very much, everybody who donated. It certainly is a worthy cause that ties everybody here in this room. So next, we will be moving to our presentation by President Hayter. So Sheila Hayter is ASHRAE's president for the 2018-2019 term. Sheila has previously served as treasurer, 2 terms as vice president and director at large. She's the recipient of ASHRAE's Distinguished Service Award, Exceptional Service Award, and an ASHRAE Technology Award. She is an ASHRAE Fellow and a Distinguished Lecturer. Sheila Hayter is the Group Manager with the Integrated Application Center at the United States Department of Energy's National Renewable Energy Lab, NREL, in Golden, Colorado. She's worked there since 1992, leading a team of experts who support international, federal, state, and local entities with the goal of significantly reducing non-renewable energy consumption through optimized use of energy efficiency strategies and renewable energy technologies, as well as addressing challenges to increase resiliency in the built environment. Her theme for her presidential year is building our new energy future. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Sheila up to the stage.
All people in front of me. There. Right. Okay, so I'm here tonight to take us on a journey, in particular a journey into the future of energy, and to discover that hugely important role that buildings are going to be playing in our new energy future. But before I begin with that, I'd first like to tell you a little bit about my own journey, to what brought me to be here tonight. So looking forward is something that I've been doing my entire life. It's part of who I am. It all started in the 70s when I was growing up as a child. Images such as these were really common in my childhood. They represent things like the environment, the energy crisis, pollution. These images received intense global attention during that time, and so they caught my attention too. Because when I was a kid, I was growing up, I was seeing these things on TV, seeing them on billboards. It was part of my experience as a kid. And so naturally I started asking questions like, where does energy come from? Why do we use energy? What are the impacts from using energy? Well, I had other influences too. My dad, who's pictured here in the center, he set the example for energy awareness in our household in a number of ways. One of those was through the thermostat. So some of you in this room who remember the 70s, remember that there was a time before setback thermostats, and everybody had something that looked something like this. So my dad, I remember, he would set back that thermostat at night before we went to bed. He'd reset it in the morning when we got up, before we left the house, when we came home from the house, when people come over, when people left. He was changing that thermostat all the time. And what it did is it taught me that we all have a responsibility to control the amount of energy that we're consuming where we can, and we own in our own homes, and the decisions we make in our daily lives. My dad was also actively engaged in ASHRAE. As many of you might remember, he was ASHRAE president between 1995 and 96. And so it's through these experiences experiences that he helped me recognize and firmly believe that ASHRAE provides a community for advancing technology and implementing positive change in our built environment and how we use energy in that environment. My mom, pictured here, was also influential during that time of my life because she and her friends, pictured in this picture, were actively engaged in a national public policy organization at our local level. And so I remember as a kid spending a lot of time helping her do things like stuff envelopes full of information that she had volunteered to share with the community about important environmental and social issues of time. So I learned from her that if you wanted to impact change, you had to be involved with educating and building knowledge and awareness about the issues so that people could make good decisions and people could be part of the change that they wanted to see happen. So now being the child of these two remarkable people, I had a couple of choices. I could have rejected their teachings completely, or I could have woven their teachings into the very fabric of who I am. So I chose the latter of those two. So moving forward, if we can get this to move forward too, there it goes. Moving forward, I studied mechanical engineering. I joined ASHRAE naturally, and I, early in my career, started to work for, as you heard, the U.S. Department of Energy's National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which is a research institution that's focused completely on advancing energy efficiency and renewable energy technologies. So being deeply involved with ASHRAE throughout my career and working at NREL has really given me a very unique perspective. It's a perspective that I look back on and say, I'm very lucky to have this opportunity in both places. My work at NREL has me constantly looking forward into the future, trying to find solutions to where we can implement these cutting-edge technologies today in order to help our buildings be those buildings of the future, to help us build that new energy future and do it right now. ASHRAE, it keeps me firmly planted in the now. And having one foot in both of these worlds, I've been a bridge between these two places for my entire career. Where on the one hand, I have my ASHRAE colleagues who work with the realities of our profession every day. You all are in the trenches. You're the ones that are dealing with the problems that we have to deal with right now. And then on the other hand, my NREL colleagues who are trying to come up with those new ideas, those new solutions for tomorrow. It's been an exciting place to be in both of these places throughout my entire career. So now you might say, we see some connections here between mechanical engineering, ASHRAE, and NREL. But what about the environment? As I showed you in those pictures from the images from the 70s, there were pollution, energy crisis, the environment. So it's like, how does the environment play in all of this? Well, I hope each one of us has some kind of special connection between ourselves and the environment, something that helps remind us why it's important that we do what we do. Well, my connection is skiing, preferably with my family. And in fact, I'm an alpine ski instructor, so when I'm not doing volunteer ASHRAE activities, I can teach people how to ski, which is something I really enjoy doing, and I'm looking forward to having a chance to do it again. In fact, I skied for the first time this season just a few days ago, and it's like, it's my play. I hope I have opportunities for this in between all of the other ASHRAE activities going on this year. We'll see if we can make it work. But my work at both NREL and ASHRAE, that keeps me connected to buildings of the energy, and skiing keeps me connected to the environment. And together, both of them remind me how important it is that the work that we do is that the decisions that we're making have a direct impact on the impacts on the environment. And that we need to every day remember that we are responsible for decisions that we make in our work so that we can preserve those environmental resources that are available to all of us. So I'd like you to think of me as a bridge between our energy present and our energy future, a bridge that connects energy and buildings and the environment. And today I'm going to talk to you about some of the ways that ASHRAE is going to be that bridge to our new energy future, and what ASHRAE is going to do to help all of you be part of that bridge as well. In order to be in that bridge, there's three things that we need to do. We need to become aware, we need to get engaged, and we need to start now. So let's start with the become aware part. What does our new energy future look like? And probably more importantly in your own minds, what in the world do buildings have to do with it? Well, fortunately, ASHRAE has already started to help build some resources so that you can become aware. This is a primer that ASHRAE lays out the future of our electricity sector and the role that buildings are going to be playing as we're seeing evolutions and how our electricity is being generated and how we're looking at how we're going to be transmitting and distributing that energy. Buildings are going to be playing a huge role, and we're seeing some big changes that are occurring right now in the power sector. And as engineers in the buildings industry, it's important we understand how those changes are going to be affecting our industry. So this is a primer that can help you understand some of those changes and give you that foundational knowledge of what's coming our way and what is it that as buildings professionals we need to be ready to be able to address and to be able to questions we should be able to answer and the partnerships and the networks that we need to start creating. So I encourage you to access this. It's downloadable for free off of the ASHRAE website. Go to the ASHRAE website and under About, you can go to the ASHRAE President's page, and the first thing you're going to see on that page is a link to where you can download this document. So please take advantage of this and download it and read it at your earliest convenience. So before describing what else ASHRAE is doing and what else ASHRAE is going to do to help you become more aware, let's talk a little bit about the energy sector of today and where it's going. So if we think about it, electricity, it powers modern life. It powers everything that we do, all of our healthcare facilities, our educational facilities, our homes, our work, our places of business. Everything that we do is in buildings. And electricity powers all of those buildings. In fact, most of the electricity generated is consumed by buildings. More than 75%, or about 3/4 of the total electricity generated in developed economies is consumed by buildings. That percentage goes up and down depending on where you are in the world. I was in Hong Kong recently at the Region 13 CRC a couple of months ago and learned that in Hong Kong, 90% of the electricity generated in that area is consumed by buildings. And if you think about how we're becoming a more urbanized world, how more and more people are moving into cities, our cities are becoming bigger, we're having more and more buildings that are being consumed, we're going to start seeing these higher percentages of total amount of electricity generated consumed by buildings. So when you think about it that way, it kind of puts a reality check on it and helps us realize that the decisions we're making are playing a huge part in how much of this resource we need and how much power is being needed for buildings, how much of it needs to be generated, and that goes back to the impact that it's having on the environment for generating. So most people, when they think of the power sector, they think of the grid, the power lines I just showed in this picture here. And this grid system, it is an engineering marvel. It's considered to be one of the most influential engineering accomplishments of the 20th century, which is a really good thing, and it's worked well for us. The thing is this is a century old, and it's more than 100 years ago that we first started to have a grid system. Things have changed a lot since that time. In that period, most of the way we get our power is we have a centralized source of generation, whether it's from a power plant that's burning fossil fuels or nuclear power, hydropower. Those are all large-scale power generation facilities in a centralized location. Electrons are sent down the wires, like what we see here, and are used by the consumer at the end. So it's one-way flow of electricity, and most of those electrons go to the buildings. This this model that we've set up has worked well for us for a long time. And it's also influenced how we design buildings in order to use that resource, that electrical energy resource. We design buildings to consume it as efficiently as possible, mostly because we want to reduce the cost of the energy. And so we design and we operate our buildings so they use less energy during the times of the day when the power is more expensive, or we try to make the buildings so we use less power overall. And again, like I said, this has worked well for us. And ASHRAE, being an organization with over a century worth of expertise, we know how to do this really well. We know how to make efficient buildings. We know how to operate them in ways that not only reduce the amount of energy, but reduce it during the times when energy is expensive. So we've been doing a good job. We're doing the right thing. But things are changing. Like I said before, we are on the front end of some evolutionary changes in the power sectors. And these changes are going to come back and require that our buildings sector, the way that we design our buildings and the way that we operate them, how and when we use energy, we're going to have to rethink that. And it is time now for us to be thinking about what are those changes, what do we expect those changes to be, so that we can we can be the ones that are leading in the conversation, saying, in order to ensure that we're providing the resources, the energy resources that this building needs, this is how the building's going to interact with those systems. And being the engineers and buildings professionals, we're the ones that will be able to help understand the best solutions. So in other words, we're moving towards a 21st century power system, and we need 21st century buildings to go along with that. So in addition to the perimeter that I've already told you about, ASHRAE is doing some other things to help you become more aware, you to build your own knowledge, so that you can be experts when these changes are occurring. And one of those areas is ASHRAE has initiated the efforts to develop a guideline on smart grids. The purpose of this guideline is to put practical information at your fingertips so that you have some direction when your clients start coming to you and saying, I want to be a provider of energy services. I want to be connected with the buildings around me so that my building is contributing to the improved performance of a portfolio of buildings instead of just a single building. Having a guideline on the smart grid concepts will help you be able to continue to be the expert to those clients, be able to answer their questions, give you a starting point so that you can make good decisions on these projects. So as I said, this has been initiated and we're expecting it to be published within the next year. So hopefully by the end of a year from now, we'll have this guideline available. And I hope that, again, like Humber, it is something that you will look forward to and access it to help you know more. So ASHRAE is also expanding our distinguished lecture program to include more presentation topics on the issues about how these changes are going to impact the building sector. What are the things that us as building professionals will need to know to continue to be leaders in the building sector? Some of these topics that we've already seen added to our distinguished lecture portfolio include topics on smart grids and smart buildings, connectivity of buildings through microgrids and smart grid, and of course, ensuring that these practices continue with a focus on keeping our buildings well, or still providing safe, comfortable, productive, and well environments for the occupants of these buildings. So through these DL speakers, as you know, this is how we connect experts in our organization to the individual members. So please work with your CPTC chair if you're interested in hearing some of these topics coming to your chapter, and get them on the list of things that you'd like to see as far as having visiting professionals in these areas who can talk to you in future chapter meetings. So earlier I said there are three things that we all need to do. We need to become aware, we need to get engaged, and we need to start now. So everything I've talked about so far, that's the becoming aware part. And it's a big job. It is. It's one of those things where we can start now to become aware. You can start building your knowledge, start asking the questions. So some of the things that you can do to help build your awareness, to help you become more aware about these topics and these issues now, include things like reading the primer, accessing the smart grid on the application guide on smart grid when it becomes available. But some of the other things are, start talking to each other, ask each other questions. Right now we don't know what the answers are, but we know these changes are coming. And so by starting a conversation, you're starting to build those ideas of solutions just amongst yourselves. And you're asking these questions, and pretty soon you'll find that person who maybe had a little bit of experience that you need in order to provide some added level of expertise during your project work to your clients or to whatever it is that you're doing now. So initiating those conversations is really important within this room, with each other, but also across sectors, to other professionals in other parts and other industries that will be impacted by these changes. So if you have, for example, somebody, we have Hydro Ottawa right here tonight. Talk to these folks. I'm sure that they saw this thing about a grant over here somewhere. There you are. I'm sure you're thinking about these things. These are big changes that are coming, and utilities, they have to be thinking about it. It's completely changed the business model that utilities are working under now, and including incorporating buildings into how we distribute and share energy and use buildings as a resource in order to levelize loads when the utility needs to have that resource available for other things. This is a good contact to have some conversations. These are the types of things I'm saying. Get involved, start asking questions. I'm aware right now. So awareness is a great first step, but we in the buildings industry, we have to do more. If we are to bridge our society to this new energy future, we have to get engaged. You have to remember, we are the buildings experts. We have nearly 125 years of experience as our mission states to serve humanity and promote a sustainable world. We have to be the leaders as this transition is occurring. So, if you think about it, these changes are going to be happening pretty quickly. I already mentioned earlier how your building owners and clients may be coming to you soon and saying, I want to be a provider of energy services. I want to generate electricity and generate energy with my buildings project in addition to just being a consumer. And you right now are their link to buildings expertise. So you're the first ones that are going to ask these questions. So be ready for that. And like I said, you might not know the answer, but be ready for the question. Start that network, start this conversation so that you know who to go to say, hey, the first time my clients come to me and said, I want to be a provider of energy services, what do you think we should do about this? So be ready to start being able to answer those questions. Also recognize that there are, and there will continue to be, many other industries that see opportunities in this evolution. Other industries that are not the buildings industry right now, but they see that the buildings are going to be playing a key role in this evolution, and they're starting to mobilize to take advantage of these changes to their own benefit, of course. So we have to be ready for that too. And instead of having other industries come into this space, we need to engage them in these conversations so that we can figure out these solutions together. Because if we don't, these other industries are going to be making decisions and moving forward in various ways that will benefit themselves and may not benefit the buildings industry. What they do may or may not benefit our clients, and most importantly, what ends up may or may not benefit the occupants of the building. These are things that are important to us, our industry, our clients, our occupants. We need to be part of that conversation. So, another way to think about it is, who would you rather have establishing protocols and standards on smart grids and smart buildings, on thermal comfort, indoor air quality, and occupant wellness? Is this something that we should have a tech company do, or should those of us in this room be part of that conversation, leading in that conversation? Who would you rather have establishing communication protocols and standards that affect building systems and operations, especially as these building systems and operations begin communicating across boundaries and maybe have communications with, say, the power sector? Is this something that we want the power sector to do alone? Those of us in this room that are informing that conversation and ensuring that those standards and protocols are set in a way that continue to benefit not only our industry, but the occupants of these buildings. Of course it should be us, and we are the experts. We have 125 years of experience doing this. So how do we get engaged? So during my presidential year, the things that we are working towards to do is to create new networks and establish new partnerships with these other organizations so that we can expand our understanding and our knowledge, not only for ourselves, but to help bring those other organizations in and understand how decisions they make to be impacting the built environment. And how are we doing that? Well, in addition to promoting the awareness with this primer, with the DL lectures, with the application guide when it becomes available, we are actually also becoming actively engaged in the smart grid community. So if we think about what the smart grid community is going to be and what the impact of buildings are, we begin to understand that buildings are going to start communicating with each other as well as the systems within the building communicating across systems in a way different way than they have before. The Internet of Things, for example, is offering all kinds of opportunities where now building systems can communicate with other systems within the building, with appliances directly, with other things that are going on in the building. This is also allowing us the opportunity for building systems to not only receive information from other systems, but to also communicate information back, so that we will be able to change how we're performing in our buildings overall in a way that is optimizing the performance across all systems, not just the building energy systems, but all systems within that building. And possibly with across buildings, we have communities of buildings that are working together we're going to optimize the performance of the entire community instead of one building at a time. This is a really cool real opportunity that's coming our way, and it is a great opportunity, and it's something that we need to pursue. But we also need to remember that when we do this, it's important that we continue to ensure the safety and security and privacy of the occupants within our buildings. This leads us to the cybersecurity question then. So ASHRAE is also becoming engaged in cybersecurity and community, because it's important that the buildings industry address the building-specific cybersecurity questions that will be arising as this evolution occurs. We, again, we're the most expert about how building systems are designed and operated. That also means that we're expert on where there are vulnerabilities for either purposeful or inadvertent cyber events that can happen through a building system. We're the ones that can help find those vulnerabilities and find ways to protect against them in ways that also ensure continued optimal performance of the building system, as well as providing those safe, comfortable, productive, healthy environments for the occupants. So as we consider all these changes that are coming our way, the other thing we need to remember is that buildings are built for people. Buildings are built for the occupants of those spaces. And it's our job to make sure that those buildings are providing the best indoor environments that we know how to provide. So ASHRAE, over the years, we have plenty of experience in this area. We know thermal comfort, we know indoor environmental quality, we know indoor air quality, we know how to do all of those things in an energy efficient way. Along with our expertise in this area, there is a very rapidly growing movement called the WELL movement. We're creating WELL environments inside of buildings. So while this movement, this well-being movement is growing, it's important that ASHRAE have a voice in that, in those from other industries that are coming together to address wellness in the built environment. This is why ASHRAE has decided to start a new multidisciplinary task group called Health and Wellness in the Built Environment. And Lynn Shi here is the chair of this. Thank you very much. This is a really exciting area, and when I talk about this, the number of people that are saying it is about time that ASHRAE be a leader in this space, and they're so excited that ASHRAE is set up so that we can identify where is it that we already are playing in this space, where do we have resources that we can offer to help those decisions that are being made as people are becoming more aware about well environments and trying to create them. But most importantly, what are the gaps where ASHRAE's leadership, and we just place ourselves there, we'll be able to say, this is the go-to organization, that if you're going to create a well environment, you have to also include ASHRAE's perspective, ASHRAE's resources, ASHRAE's knowledge in those decisions. And so Lynn Shi is leading a team of people to help identify those gaps for us and to help us take advantage of what we're already doing. And if you're interested in this and if you want to get engaged in this, in these questions now, either talk to me, talk to Lynn Shi, and we'll get you in touch. Yes. Your committee might have just doubled in size. So these are the things that ASHRAE is doing right now to help us. There we go. This is what ASHRAE is doing right now to become engaged. This is what we're doing to help bring the essential expertise that ASHRAE has to offer into these new areas. But you can also become engaged in your day-to-day lives too. So some of the ways that you might think about doing this include becoming engaged in the health and wellness and built environment (MTG). We've also formed a technical committee, a new technical committee, TC210, called Resiliency and Security. And this is the group that, among other things, will be looking at where is the role for ASHRAE in addressing the cybersecurity questions in the built environment. If that's something that's interesting to you, then please become engaged in the TC210 conversation. I've already talked about asking you to build your awareness by asking questions of one another. And you can get engaged even further by, instead of just talking within this room, crossover, talk to your clients, for example, about what they could do. Help them build their own awareness. And by helping them become more aware and helping them recognize that it's important for them to think about some of these issues, then suddenly you are placing yourself in a position of expertise for them, and you're engaged in helping them find solutions. Keep an ear to the ground and look for opportunities where you can expand your own experience in some of these areas in the Smart Grid project or maybe looking at cybersecurity, or any of the other things I talked about. Or we'll talk about a little bit something else that ASHRAE is doing to start now that I think you'll find very interesting at the local level. And also get to know some of the other players in the space. You have Ottawa right here in this room. There are other utilities. There are the IT staff or teams that are on the projects that you're working on, or if you're going to do more with the Internet of Things and the communication across systems within buildings. Get those people involved in the conversations and start finding solutions together with them. So, I've talked about how you've become aware and how you've done the issues and the technologies and the challenges that we're facing today. And we've also talked a little bit about getting engaged. But I want to underscore the importance of starting now. We can say, you know, I can get ready, I need to find some answers, I'm not really going to do anything until I feel more comfortable about all these things. Well, the thing is these changes are happening right now. This isn't something that is going to happen in 5 years or 10 years. It's happening now. And in 5 years or 10 years from now, we'll look back on today and we'll go, wow, it's really different than it was not that long ago. So if we're going to continue to be leaders and continue to be sought out for our expertise in this area, then we need to start now. We need to put ourselves out there. Even if we don't know the answers, we need to be ready to try to find the solutions and to put those groups together that can answer these questions. So some of the ways that ASHRAE is starting now, I just said I would tell you one that I thought you thought might be interesting right here in Ottawa. ASHRAE and APA are partnering to form a living lab effort. What we're doing with ASHRAE and APA, so as a reminder, APA is an organization whose members are made up of those who are responsible for operating facilities at university campuses. And what university campuses have to offer is they're already looking into some of these questions around microgrids, for example, generation on their site. How do you manage a portfolio of buildings so you're optimizing the performance of the entire portfolio instead of just one building at a time? These are the kinds of things that we're all going to be needing to think about. And so ASHRAE and APA are working together so that we can create a knowledge base where we can gather the information and the lessons learned that we've already have gained from these experiences from university campuses and package them in a way that will help all of us become better informed. So that you're not the first one to try to figure out a problem. You will have a reference, you'll have some experiences that can be shared from others. And one of the partnering universities that we are expecting to be a member of this living laboratory is Carleton University, so you can see on this picture here. Another way that ASHRAE is starting now is we're encouraging our students to participate in this year's Applied Engineering Challenge, which is to help rebuild the energy infrastructures for one of the islands in Puerto Rico where all of their infrastructure was destroyed during last year's hurricanes. So they lost energy infrastructure, water treatment, both potable water as well as their sewage systems, their infrastructures, even so that the occupants can go and get food. All of that was completely destroyed. So we're asking our students to come up with solutions where they are integrating it, not just recreating what was already there, but finding new solutions where it's all integrated together. And so the output of one may be supporting the needs of another system. This is really looking at that integration between systems, and buildings are going to be playing a key role in that integration. The other thing we're doing is we're encouraging chapters to take on projects that will help expand and build on the ideas that are incorporated into this year's society theme. For example, could a chapter maybe work with a disadvantaged community or neighborhood in their communities and provide, say, a community solar project to help meet energy needs within that community, or to help educate students to help them understand what does it mean to integrate distributed generation into the system, and how can they take advantage of that during periods of time when maybe there's stresses on the system from other things. These are the types of things we're hoping that our ASHRAE members can do right now, and we're encouraging their participation either through the Applied Engineering Challenge or through PAOE points if a chapter does take on a project that's in line with the theme for this year. So ASHRAE knows that it's essential to take a leadership role in this change, because if we don't, someone else will. So please, take advantage of the work that ASHRAE is doing to help you become aware, to help our other members become aware, to help them become engaged, But most importantly, please contribute to it. We all have expertise, we all have experiences that will help us find these new solutions. So start your day-to-day life, become aware, become engaged, be a leader. Because we want everyone in this society to be one step ahead, and ASHRAE is here to help you do that. So finally, I've shared with you how I'm a bridge. I've shared with you how ASHRAE is a bridge. I've shared with you some of the tools and resources that ASHRAE is working on now and plans to continue to build to help you be a bridge in your own communities. So now together, let's build that bridge to our new energy future. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Sheila? I think we actually have time for questions now. If you want to do some questions now.
All right, we don't want to cut the curves on too much.
So a real simple one, where'd you go skiing?
Where do I go skiing? Okay, so Saturday I went skiing at Copper Mountain, which is only about an hour's drive from where I live in Boulder, Colorado. And it was awesome. It was like the best early opening weekend that I've had at games. We did this one. This was just amazing. So, does that answer that question? Yes, no, I'm a Rocky Mountain skier. I have skied out here when I was in college. I came out and skied. I skied at Blue Mountain, and I skied at Mont Saint-Anne. Both those places, so I would say I did some of your skiing too. It's different than people skiing. Any other questions? Well, I'll be around, so thank you so much, everybody, and we have to talk with anybody who's interested following. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. And again, thank you for working us into your schedule. For those of you who don't know, the year as Society President keeps people moving. It's a bit of a whirlwind. I think the expectation, Sheila, correct me if I'm wrong, but you will be traveling something like 250 days this year. So it's a busy, busy year, and the fact that we were able to have this happen is fantastic. It's something that really just came together in the last few weeks. And again, thank you so much for being here to do that. Next up, I would like to introduce Kurt Montero from Smith & Anderson. Kurt Montero is an ASHRAE Society Level Technology Award winner for his project, the Humber River Hospital. Kurt has spent more than 20 years as a consulting engineer, and he's an active member of the ASHRAE Toronto chapter, has served on the Board of Governors, and is currently on the executive as secretary of that chapter. He's a voting member of the ASHRAE Certification Committee, as well as a provisional corresponding member for several healthcare and laboratory technical committees. He's also an active member of the CSA Medical Gas Technical Subcommittee that published CSA Z7396. And if you don't know what Z7396 is, please feel free to ask Kurt. Again, Kurt received first place in the new healthcare facilities category for his project, the Humber River Hospital, in 2016. The building is owned by the hospital and is a 656-bed facility. It's one of Canada's largest acute care facilities, and this particular building, the leadership had a vision of lean, green, and digital. The building was designed to exceed ASHRAE Standard 90.1 2017 by 40%. Several approaches were used to achieve the goal, and Kurt is going to dive into that. So without further ado, please welcome Kurt Montero.
That's a good point. We should probably switch the presentation, unless you want Sheila's notes. Well, there's a clicker up there.
Thanks. That's a tough act to follow. And I promised Dan I'd get through my 300 slides in 2 hours. Great. So we worked on Humber River Hospital, and that's the finished shot off the building. It was a massive project, 1.8 million square feet. 656 rooms, just 80 annual units, $1 billion in construction cost. And the most challenging part of the project was we had to design and build in 44 months, which meant we were definitely, they were constructing while we were designing. It's a big site over here, 25 acres. It's in the heart of Toronto, along the 401. And second largest green roof in Canada. So it was easy on this project to be the largest of many different things at the size of the project. The operating rooms, size football field, 20 suites, 20 ORs. 5 weeks ago, I had knee surgery there, and went to my surgeon, and he says, I've got some OR time, you can go in. And all of you guys living in Canada, you're thinking, well, 3 months, 6 months, what am I waiting? And it was the next week he had OR time. So I had to wait, actually I waited 3 weeks because it was too soon in my schedule. So that's changed, literally the hospital's changed our healthcare delivery in that part of town. And 6 million megawatts of generating capacity, so 3 generators backing up 100% off the facility, both its heating and its cooling. So it's in a multicultural portion of Toronto, so serving many different communities, and that's reflected in the staff as well. And an acute care facility, so you've got emergency departments, you've got a mat child, mental health, you've got many outpatient programs, bariatric center of excellence, and when they were looking at combining the hospitals locally there, they had 3 different sites and wanted to bring it together. They had to make a decision. We're going to rebuild and build a new building, or try to retrofit the buildings. And because the leadership at the hospital said, we want to go lean, green, digital, we can't do that at the existing sites, so we're going to try to pull it all together, but we're going to push the envelope of all those 3 pillars. The project was delivered to the P3 model, and so public-private partnership. And we were part of a large team led by Plenary Group, and they had the contract with Infrastructure Ontario, and they brought PCL, general contractors, on board to engage HDR, the architects, and ourselves as the mechanical electrical engineers. Johnson Controls provided facility management, was the facility management team, and that they were operating the facility for 30 years, as well as the control systems in the building. Mon Niger and Plan provided the mechanical and electrical construction. So that's again an overall snapshot. And what I'd like to point out is that we've got, there are 2 parking garages that were included in the site as well, and the building is facing south. So the design principles that we looked at, lean, green, and digital, some of the other architectural features that they pulled into it was trying to bring in some of the local nature about the building. So they had aspen groves, or they've got aspen trees that were in the community, and so they want to reflect that in the facade. And I will get into some of the more interesting systems that they've done, that they've incorporated into the building as well. So when we talked about lean in a healthcare facility, they really want to focus on the staff and the patient experience. So 1.8 million square feet, it's a massive facility, and they didn't want to have their staff walking and traveling through that facility when they came to do their daily job. So they focused on looking at keeping the departments small, local, and so people didn't have to, and staff and patients didn't have to go very far once they got to that department. Once they got there for the day, they wouldn't be moving around too much around the hospital. So there was a lot of time and effort spent into looking at how staff do current jobs, how many steps they take, and looking at when we were laying out the building to figure out where they would be, how to have departments adjacent to each other, so if they had to go between departments, they weren't walking very far, and even their stations and patient care and where beds were located relative to nursing stations was a huge emphasis. So one of the ways that they looked at also staying lean was putting in a lot of automation. What you see here is a robot. That robot is used right now, running around and moving laundry, moving food, moving large medicine carts throughout the facility. So things that used to be done by porters are now being done by robots. They also have a pneumatic chute system which is used not all for garbage as well as laundry. So everything that's going down in this massive 1.8 square foot facility drops down to the basement and runs horizontally to the loading dock, where they can get rid of garbage as well as bring the laundry in. So what they did was they looked at how many people we had to walk across the facility, and they eliminated the need of those people having to move throughout this facility. Wherever they could replace those tasks with automation, they did that. And there were paybacks, so they spent a lot of time understanding what the payback of the technology was, the cost of order, the cost of health, and the benefits of kind of reducing the distances that people have to travel throughout the facility. Standardization of rooms was also a big part of the hospital. So they have staff that move throughout the facility. One day you might work in one department, you might go work in another department. The clean supply room would always look the same. The way the patients are set up, the patient rooms on each individual floors are set up the same way. So when staff walk into the department, it might be a different department, but things are generally in the same place. And that was the kind of idea of standardization, so it made it easy for them as an organization to be flexible with their staff as they move throughout the hospital. So one of the things that Humber is very proud of is when in a large facility, they were worried about how people would be able to navigate through hospitals. I'm not sure about you guys, but sometimes you go to a hospital and there's a line on the floor and you've got to follow all the way to your department and you're winding down the corridors and you have no idea where to go to. So along here where you see the one purple corridor in the front, that would be like driving up to an airport terminal. And you look for signs for the airline that you're flying in. So in this case what they did was they have signage for the various departments, outpatient departments, where you'd be getting off, and there's a number of entrances in front of that hospital. So you'd be getting off closest to where you have to go. You'd be going to the elevators, or you'd be going to the doors for all the departments there at the south end. That, or you'd be walking down the main central aisle, and that would feed you into the various departments throughout the hospital. So they made wayfinding way simpler, and that was a key focus. Again, large hospital, how to make life easier for people, how to have them, get them around. So the shot over here on the right-hand side is that main concourse when you come in. Probably reminds you of an airport, double height, lots of open space, and so at the same time you're in a large facility, but you still don't feel like you're trapped inside a windowless building. So this is the inpatient floor, so it's a 14-story building, and level 7 to level 14 was the entire inpatient floor, and this is where all the patients are staying overnight in the medical surgical units. And so along here, they had a lot of standardization. So all the beds are along the perimeter, the patient rooms along the perimeter. You see a picture of it there with lots of daylight in the rooms. And they've got nursing stations that are, again, identical, set up to provide great supervision. And all the rooms along the core are standard rooms reflected again and again and again, so staff can move from one unit to the next, as I mentioned before. So replication was a big part of how they stayed clean. So I'm going to focus most of my time on the green side, because that's where I have an interest. And what does it mean to be sustainable? So in this particular building, for us, it was indoor air quality, green roof, material durability, natural light, and low quality inside landscaping. Those are things that we focused on increasing, and the energy consumption, water, material waste, look at decreasing that. And the leadership team at the hospital set out goals. And so in the P3 process, these were goals that we absolutely had to achieve for the building. And they were quite aggressive. So if anyone's worked in healthcare facilities, these are not easy targets to hit. And the leadership team did their homework, and there were 3 teams bidding on the job, and all 3 teams came back to them and said, "Are you really sure? We don't know if we can actually achieve this." And to the credit, and we were on one of those teams that said, can we really achieve this in a healthcare facility? And to their credit, they stuck to their guns and said, yes, we think we can. We've done some energy models, we've done some homework. We didn't just throw this number out there. We've done 5 years of homework with energy modelers to try to get to this point where we're confident that we can get there. You guys can take different paths to get there, but we have a solution with where we can get there. So the monkey that they threw in that in that wrench is that they asked us to also in addition to having this extremely aggressive energy target, is to provide 100% outdoor air system. So for all the HVAC consultants in the room, like 100% outdoor air and try to meet that energy target. That's like crazy talk, right? So everyone's going, are you really serious? This is what you want to achieve as well. So they said, yes, we want excellent indoor air quality and increased infection control. So the idea is that they're already driving to reduce their infection rates. Historically, they were one of the, had the highest infection rates in the GTA at the hospital. So they wanted to go completely in the opposite direction. One of the ways they did that was 80% of inpatient rooms or single patient rooms, right? So that's the new CSA standard, and they go in that direction. So they funded that, and that's to avoid cross-contamination between patients. But as we know, airborne infections are a real thing that happens, and there are many departments where people come through the hospital, and they're walking through the hospital, they might be contaminating people before they get to a point where they're being isolated. So it's not like you can eliminate airborne infections, but certainly when you go to 100% outside air, you help reduce it. The CSA standard that governs healthcare in Canada requires 33% outdoor air, roughly, in most departments and most areas, and so they're asking us to exceed that by 3 times. So, in addition to all of that, we had to achieve this and design and build this super efficient building in 44 months. The challenges that some of the contractors and consultants in the room might appreciate is that we're at about 100% DD, so this is about roughly 25% design, where we procure the chillers, the boilers, the air handling units. Energy was such a huge focus in this procurement process that we actually we allowed the manufacturers some flexibility in how they built up their air handling units, provided they meet the performance, the airflows and everything else. But we had suppliers fill out a spreadsheet plugging in what their fan energy requirements were for the air handling systems to spit out a final number that took into account the operating hours of each air handler. So you could build one box a little bit bigger and use a little bit less energy, another air handler a little smaller, use a little bit more energy, but if the smaller box that was using more energy only ran 8 hours a day versus the other one ran 24 hours a day, you could offset that energy balance. So the goal that we were trying to achieve was we were tight for mechanical space to some degree, but we had manufacturers, different vendors wanted to build the air handling units a little bit differently. So we wanted to provide them flexibility, and given that it was 80 air handlers and over millions of dollars in air handling equipment, we wanted to provide that flexibility. Either way, it was tough to nail down these numbers at 25% design. So the architects haven't finished designing, the owners haven't finished making their mind, and we're already procuring equipment. In the case of the mechanical layouts, you're building a 44-story building, and you have to start constructing. Well, all the departments in the basement, first, second, third floor, were all behind design schedules before we started. So they worked out backwards and said, hey, this is where we've got to be finished. They hit the construction deadline, and on the first day we were already late. So it was quite the challenge to kind of build in the flexibility in the design to make sure that we could accommodate changes that were going to be driven later on by the owner. And we did go back and have to make some adjustments. Even working with the building department was interesting, because typically for new hospitals, they expect you to show up with a set of drawings, entire hospital design, so they can pick it apart and make sure it meets code. So in this case, we had to convince them that we would give them a core and shell of a complicated healthcare facility, and then we would come in and show them detailed layouts of ORs and inpatient towers and the dialysis unit, and that they would accept that that would be the approach we would take. And so it took some convincing, and we had a staged permanent approach. And the permitting process, they had drawings coming in over a year and a half, and we spent hours with the city reviewing drawings to kind of explain the scope of what we're submitting at this point in time and how it fit into the big picture with respect to fire protection and so on. I would have liked to have bought shares in a coring contractors company, to be honest with you. There were the number of sleeves that we put sleeving in early, but we had to go back and core many holes later to accommodate relocated sinks and things like that in the facility. So the interesting part, and I guess the focus of today's presentation, really is about energy. So we talked about this aggressive energy target and how we're going to get there. So this is a graph out of the ASHRAE handbook for healthcare facilities. And what these bar graphs represent is the total energy consumption in healthcare, in acute healthcare facilities. And it's for the various regions. So we're in region 6B. And as you can see, the green region up there represents the amount of fan energy consumed in the building. And the red bar graph represents the amount of reheat energy used in the building. So if you're trying to hit these aggressive energy targets, it makes sense to focus on the biggest chunks there and try to reduce the energy consumption. And so, how do we go about that? Well, we looked at excellent envelope performance, and I think that's a given. You've got to start with that. Optimizing our heating and cooling. Efficient ventilation, that goes back to the fan energy. Heating and cooling reflects the reheat. And then effective heat recovery. And we'll get into the details of all of that. I will say, actually, the entire facility, because we're designing and constructing, and there was a huge overlap. There was a rigorous BIM process we went through for every single department, and every contractor was held to the BIM model. So this wasn't a race to get in there first, and then someone else has got to deal with their problem. If you went in there, you installed your services in the wrong location, not according to the BIM model, every other contractor could be in your way. If they couldn't accommodate you after the fact, you had to go change your stuff out. So they were pretty strict and rigorous about that. And we had surprisingly few changes we had to make after the fact to fit things in because we went through this rigorous process. And that was one of the reasons why we were already late when we started, because they took into account this coordination process. And the model had everything in it. So everything from IT to cable trays, which were painful to fit into past mechanical systems. So the building envelope, R20 walls, R30 roofs, green roofs. Really large green roofs really helped with the energy performance. One of the interesting things that we did was we got high performance dynamic glass, and it's the largest installation of this type of glass in Canada. Basically, glass is electrochromatic glass, and it changes the shading of the glass by varying the amount of current through the glass. There are sensors at the top of the building, both on the north and the south side, that account for cloud cover at any given time. So there's software that looks at where the sun is in the sky, because that's pretty predictable based on time of day and time of year, as well as cloud cover. And based on that, it optimizes the shading that the glass is supposed to be at to minimize your cooling load and maximize how much heating you can gain in the wintertime. So in the wintertime, it might lighten up the glass to let more heat from the sun, solar gain, but in the summertime, the reverse would be true. Again, the building's oriented as well with this large north and south facades to minimize the cooling load on the building. Having said that, patients themselves were able to override the glass in their rooms, and they could do that for an hour and then go back and reset in line with the rest of the building. So if you're looking at the facade, sometimes when you're driving across, you might see the odd patient here or there who's changed the tinting on the building, but for the most part, it works very well, and so patients get to maximize the amount of light coming into there. So the heating and cooling systems, I really love this schematic. All the projects I've done, this is one of my favorite. First, it's got a ton of equipment on it, and the second thing is it's the heating and cooling plants completely integrated and combined together. So we've got the cooling towers at the top, the chillers down the left-hand side in blue, the condensing boilers on the right-hand side, and the stars show in the middle the light blue chillers in the middle, and those are the heat recovery chillers. So the entire heating and cooling system is integrated together, and I'll get into some details here. So in healthcare facilities, we have what we call 24/7 cooling loads. So the MRIs, the diagnostic imaging equipment, CT scanners, communications closets, electrical rooms. There's a number of pieces of equipment that require cooling, regardless of whether it's summer or winter. And so we call those our 24/7 cooling loads. On the heating side, we always have to do reheat. So the CSA standard 317.2, Z317.2, requires that we have a minimum number of air changes in all our healthcare in a patient room, it would be 6 air changes per hour. In an OR, it would be 20 air changes per hour. And we have to maintain those airflows regardless of space temperature. And so the way that we do that is we're supplying the same temperature air to all the spaces, but each individual space has its own reheat coil, and we're reheating to meet the space condition. What that means is you're actually heating even in the summertime. So you have this reheat demand all year round. It obviously is higher in the wintertime because we were doing airside heating, so we'd use that air also to heat the space, but in the summertime you still had a baseline reheat coil. So instead of burning gas in our boilers to heat in the summer, what we did was we stuck in heat recovery chillers, and ASHRAE 91 mandates that. So we're actually transferring, we're providing chilled water to all our 24/7 cooling loads, and the condenser on the heat recovery chillers are producing 130 degree Fahrenheit heating water for all our reheat coils. This entire building, the air handling systems, and all the heating systems and reheat coils were all designed for 130 degrees Fahrenheit with a 100 degree return. So what that allowed us to do with the low return water temperature was to drive our condensing boilers and make sure we can maximize the condensing efficiency, the boiler efficiency for the plant. We also included domestic hot water system in this hydronic heating plant. And the reason we did that was instead of using steam, that's very traditional in healthcare facilities to generate domestic hot water, we decided to do it with the hydronic system because we could use the cold water to pre-cool the return water temperature to the condensing boilers, and again make sure that we had low return water temperatures going to those boilers, maximizing efficiency. We boost just a local loop for domestic hot water up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit to be able to deal with Legionellas and those requirements, but the rest of the building was all running at 130 degrees Fahrenheit. So the coils in the building had to be a little bit bigger, but we found that there was definitely a payback in the efficiency. So the heating and cooling plant, we have an N+1 redundancy. Again, the heat recovery chillers actually accounted as part of that redundancy for our heating plant. So we took advantage of that. So the one thing about the P3 process is you have to be very competitive, right? Your designs have to be innovative. You have to look for every solution you can to try to reduce capital cost to make yourself competitive, as well as reduce your energy costs. So that was one of the things that we did, was using our heat recovery chillers as part of the redundancy of the plant. Dual fuel condensing boilers, variable primary and variable secondary distribution. So we had variable flow on a primary loop to deal with the varying loads in the building, as well as the domestic hot water system, and then variable secondary distribution to deal with the entire building. We also put the boiler control system in that was connected to the overall building plant. And the key thing about the boiler plant was we made sure that we maximized both pumping and heating efficiency for the boiler. So we would not don't stage boilers in those buildings. For instance, running a boiler at 100%, then bringing the next one on. What we do is we probably run 3 or 4 boilers, depending on the load, at part load. So we might run 3 boilers at 33% to meet the demand, because you take advantage of the larger surface area and the reduced pressure drop through the boilers. And that's another way to drive efficiency. We had magnetic bearing chillers that were variable speed drive, as well as the heat recovery chillers that I noted before. Again, primary variable chilled water distribution to maximize efficiency as variable as including VFDs and the cooling towers. We spent a lot of time optimizing this chiller plant, and it's not done yet. Right? So as it's a living building, and if I got to design a Humber or hospital every year and had prototypes, probably get it perfect right out the door, but it takes a lot of tweaking because energy optimization sequences aren't focused on heat recovery systems, and they have a hard time kind of recognizing that heat recovery chillers have, even though they've got high C, aren't as efficient in cooling, you gain the benefit of the heating side, so you got to take into account of that. And it's amazing that one little simple thing can throw your standard control optimization sequences out the window. And so we got to have work with the controls vendors to ensure that they help on that. So again, I touched on this before. The other issue that we ran into and recognized is that while the variable speed the variable speed chillers were great for the centrifugal machines, the heat recovery chillers, on the other hand, those ones we had to stage on and off. And so we had a variable primary system that we designed. However, we had chillers that needed minimum flows and weren't able to handle that. So that's something I would say for people to take away when you're putting heat recovery chillers in the plant. Keep in mind you've got to get both of them working together. And it can be quite challenging. So the ventilation system, fan energy was a huge part of it, and of trying to reduce fan energy to improve energy efficiency. So in our case, for all the critical areas of the hospital, places like critical care, ORs, the birthing units, operative delivery, we had parallel air handling units serving those spaces. And each air handling unit was sized for 100% of the load, but we operate them at 50% of the load. And I'll get into that further. So this allowed for those 24/7 spaces. It allowed for filter changes, maintenance of the entire air handler to be done, and you had full redundancy and full backup. Where we had less critical departments, like a food service area that might run 24/7 but not as critical for patient care, those would have dual fans. So we'd have one air handler unit with 2 fans in them, each size to be able to handle the load. And then for administrative spaces where people go home at night and they can do maintenance and things like that at night, in those cases we had single air handler units. And so 71 total air handling units, not including the small ones, and 1.86 million CFM. So I doubt my career I'm going to surpass that. Size of air handling system. So the efficient ventilation system design was focused on actually reducing pressure drop. And the way that we did that was we oversized our air handling units. And it sounds extremely simple, but that's actually what we did. So we reduced the velocity through the air handling units down between the range of 250 feet per minute to 350 feet per minute, and lower velocities lead to low fan power. All the redundant units where we had those critical spaces, they all operate at 50% capacity all the time. So we get much greater energy savings. We oversized all the ductwork, and we used high efficiency fans and motors. Now, this sounds very simplistic, but the beauty of this approach is that you can't have operators goof this up, right? You have large ducts, you have large air handling units. No control sequence in the world is going to make them smaller, right? Unless they're sticking stuff in the ductwork, the ductwork's going to remain large, and you're going to get significant energy savings. Now, I will say that one of the challenges for the project was when you say, okay, I'm going to oversize air handling units, you're paying more money for bigger air handlers. And so that's quite a premium there. Floor-to-floor height is a big deal. You need high floor-to-floor heights in your mechanical room because you've got bigger ductwork, bigger units. You need high floor-to-floor heights on the individual floors when you're doing distribution. So we did a cost-benefit analysis of using this approach. And mind you, we had to kind of go in this direction anyways. But we did the cost-benefit analysis, and the payback was about 7 years. Okay? So now you're thinking 7 years, I'm never going to have an owner go for 7 years. But in this case, we didn't have to ask the owner because it's a 30-year life cycle cost that we're looking at for the project. And when they're looking at evaluating these P3 projects with an energy guarantee, you're looking at the overall cost of operating that facility for 30 years. And that dwarfs the capital cost of the building. And so a 7-year payback looks like gold in that scenario. And it's a no-brainer in that scenario. And so we've used the same approach on multiple projects after that. So it's a tough sell, but I'm sure there's lots of institutions in the room that own and operate their buildings. That is an approach. Now, the reason why it makes sense in healthcare is because of the CSA standard requiring minimum air changes per hour for spaces. So you're operating those units at 100% of the time. In a VAV system, that you don't get that same sort of data. So it does make sense. These spaces, maybe in lab spaces, depending on the approach. So just going back to reduced fan energy for the students in the room, your fan affinity laws. But basically, if you have 2 units operating at 50% capacity, in this example, we say 1 unit at 100%, you use 17.8 brake horsepower. 2 units at 50%, you use 9.8. So you can look at the fan curves there, and you can see significant energy savings that we get all the time unless you're doing maintenance. So the reality is probably 99% of the time you're getting benefit of those savings. One of the other things that we looked at was how to deal with unoccupied times in the hospital. So there's a number of departments and sub-departments that operate different bars. So, and the CSA standard allows you for certain type spaces to reduce the air changes per hour or actually shut it off altogether. So there are a number, this is a 24/7 facility, so there's a number of spaces that require air flowing through it all the time. Even the ORs. When ORs aren't occupied, they normally, you can drop down to 6 air changes per hour. Normally you have to 20 air changes per hour. So what we did was we provided VAV boxes to all these spaces on the supply and the return ductwork. And we spent a lot of time understanding the clinical use of the little sub-departments and what schedules each of those little sub-departments would be operating at, and make sure that we provided those sub-areas with a VAV box serving those entire spaces. So even though it's a constant volume system, the groups of rooms in those areas got their own individual boxes. An individual OR or a procedure room would have its own dedicated supply and return box. What that allowed us to do is, in those areas, we could schedule, and the facilities can schedule those areas to go into unoccupied mode. We have occupancy sensors in that space, and that can also drive the air changes for up and down in those spaces as required. So this is as simple as scheduling your light switches in your space. We have large air handlers that serve a number of different areas, but all these sub-departments can vary down, either shut off completely, depending on the space type, or we go to the minimum air changes. This slide just talks about the 100% outside air that we're required to provide to the building. So we oversize, we're bringing the air outside air right through into the spaces, exhausting all the air from the washrooms, returning to the entropy recovery wheels. So in this building, we focused on recovering heat through entropy recovery wheels through breathable exhaust. Right? So we distinguish between what we call non-breathable exhaust and breathable exhaust. So something like a fume hood, biosafety cabinets, welding hood, we'd be using glycol runaround coils. Anywhere, any other spaces in the facility where you had the opportunity to breathe the air on the way to that exhaust hole, like you would in a washroom, we figured it's safe. But safe from a standpoint it might smell, but it's not gonna kill you. So we looked at that and said that's breathable exhaust, and so we used entropy recovery wheels throughout the facility to improve energy efficiency. So one of the aha moments we had on the project was when we were looking at the entropy recovery system, we had gone through and said, well, we know we need to recover heat. That's a given to meet the energy target. What we found was when we reduced the velocity of the air through the air handlers from 500 feet per minute to 300 feet per minute, or 250 feet per minute, depending on the air handler, we increased the effectiveness of the entropy recovery wheels. So you have more contact time, more transfer time with the wheels, and so we boosted and got 95% efficiencies in some of the wheels. And because because CSA requires traditionally only 33% outside air, and you're recovering 85 to 95% off that energy, we found there was no penalty for 100% outdoor air handling. I mean, you pay for it in cost, but there was no energy penalty in this case. And so, we tried to reduce fan energy, oversized orbital air handlers, side benefit, effectiveness goes up, and we don't pay the penalty. So that was definitely a big win and an aha moment on the project. So the end result, 20,000 tons of CO2 being reduced, 4,000 cars off the road, and millions in operational savings. So if you've ever been through the Toronto area, this is a shot past Yonge Street in Toronto, and that's 16 lanes of highway, and that's kind of the equivalent of lots of cars are taking off the highway. I forget the event that drove this, but there was some point point, like this is not made up, it's not Photoshop. At one point when they shut down the highway, no cars in the 401. So digital was the other side. I'll jump into this quickly. But basically, why did they go digital? And they want to increase efficiency and patient care and patient satisfaction. So by going digital, they were able to share information about patients very quickly throughout the facility. Also give patients access to their own information. And use all that data to study that data to further drive efficiencies in the organization. So their goal was to be digital paper light. So if you know healthcare facilities and healthcare providers, they like their paper. So the goal was we're going to put everything in so we can be digital only, paper free, but there's going to be a transition period to bring people along in the new facility. People will be mobile, so every staff member has a mobile device that they can access information on. They will be connected. There are all the staff members actually can be tracked in the facilities based on their badges, so they know whether they can help in a cold white situation, things like that. They can find people, and the hospital, the hospital. So in this case, it means free Wi-Fi for everyone who's in the building. So systems integration. So one thing that's pretty unique about Humber was that they really wanted to focus on integrating all that information and making it available when necessary between systems. So it meant running all these systems on the same IT backbone and having virtual firewalls to separate the data and only that data being transmitted from one system to another. So an example of that might be a user a patient is in their room. This is an integrated bedside terminal. They would get their patient information, so their health records they'd be able to see on that screen. They'd be able to watch TV on that screen, control the lights, control the dynamic glass, reset the temperature in the room, all through that system, right? So they would also be able to order their food and select from the menu options on this screen as well. This sort of integration to get that sort of integration is a long process. They sat down with the staff, first figured out how do the people currently work right now, and then looked at how we could use that information crossing between these different systems to make them more efficient and develop workflows. And security is a huge concern over here because you don't want the wrong people having access to confidential information. Or you don't want patients being able to change HVAC systems that they're not supposed to, right? Like HVAC are. So that level of control and firewalls, virtual firewalls, was absolutely critical. So that's kind of a synopsis of the lean, green, and digital Humber Hospital. And we design these buildings, and you hope you get there. And there's two good stories here. One is a year after operating it, we submitted for the ASHRAE Technology Award, and it was the president of that year, Ron Chapter, he said, we're going to submit. Even if we don't win, I want to have as many submissions as we can get. And so he coaxed me into submitting. And we submitted the long form. That's just a little tip to say for our Region 2 friends here, that there's a short form and a long form, and the short form never wins. So just do the grunt work if you want to go after the award, and submit the long form. A little bit more work, but it's certainly worthwhile. And we ended up winning the first place technology award. And part of this story is actually doesn't just let you win an award based on concepts. You actually have to submit your operating energy, right, that you got from the facility. So as you can imagine, a facility like this, there's energy penalties that you pay if you don't meet the targets. So there's lots of measurement and verification going on. To build a building, by the way, one little tip that I forgot was, if we didn't complete on time, the way the P3 model works is there's financial penalties that the banks impose, and it's $175,000 a day. So, come hell or high water, we met that deadline. The story over here with this graph is that there's the Toronto Regional Conservation Authority runs a organization called the Greening Healthcare Forum, and they've got a a huge number of healthcare facilities that provide them with their utility data, including water, gas, and electricity, and they benchmark each other, against each other. They put this all in a database, and they kind of produce an energy intensity benchmark. And so the idea is that they understand where they are and where they can get to, and where they can compare buildings of their own age. So the building I want to point out is the Humber Hospital buried in here, because I can't disclose names of all the other hospitals, is the green line on the top, the first green line up here. And while it's not at the top, every other facility above that is not an acute care facility. It's either a continuing care facility, it's a outpatient facility, it's not an acute care facility with ORs and critical care and all these other spaces that are more energy intensive, diagnostic imaging spaces. So Humber, the good news story is that Humber, while it hasn't hit the energy target bang on, it has for electricity. With gas, we're close, we're getting there, I'm optimistic. And but regardless of not meeting the energy target, it is the most efficient acute care facility right now in this database, and arguably probably Canada. We've not seen another facility that's come close. So that for us was definitely, that's the rewarding part. After four years of my life and getting gray hair over this project, literally, we actually got a building that was extremely energy efficient. And so thanks, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And for the students in the room, if I went through anything too quickly, if you don't want to ask me questions now, I'm happy to hang around later and explain it, because, yeah, it's obviously quite a joy, so I love talking about the building. Any questions?
Yeah, just a bit about the contract method. You said a P3 contract method was used. Could this have been done using a traditional design bid build?
Yes.
And would it have had the same success?
Probably not. So and I say that because things like the 7-year payback, right, would not be taken into account in the process. The motivation over here is you can do an energy model that says, okay, it's going to pay back and the owner may fix that. But in this case, there's an energy guarantee tied over 30 years. And so we have, not only did we have our energy modelers that we're looking at kind of making sure we get the lead requirements and we could submit for our building permits, we actually had the FM provider, who's responsible for the energy guarantee. They had a separate set of energy modelers looking at just that, predicting what the energy performance would be, whether they meet the target, set the target. So some of the elements that they made suggestions, and they came to the table and provided their input on how to meet the targets. Right? So it'd be tough, like the level of rigor that you need, because if the building didn't achieve the target after the fact, which is entirely possible given how it gets maintained, then the owner's not going to recourse. In this case, they're penalties that kick them. So there's political reasons why people do P3s, but I would say that's one of the penalties on the energy side. That was actually the nice part about it, because when we came up with ideas that were maybe we did all the low-hanging fruit, right? That's easy. So when you start to do the tougher stuff, you weren't getting shocked at when you went over 5 years. There's a question for that.
Actually, that was my first one. I had another question. What would you say was sort of the toughest element of the design you encountered? What was the biggest challenge?
To be honest, I think two things: schedule. And put a lot of pressure on the design. So we had to make lots of assumptions with flexibility, but we couldn't have a ton of fat in our mechanical systems because of the energy guarantee. So like we were selecting fans and air handling units without ductwork layouts being done. So we then complete the ductwork layout, and then we do sizing ductwork to make sure it met the fan static count. Then we go through the interference process, and fabrication drawings were produced in the interference process. And then they would relocate a bunch of ducts and maybe change some fittings. We would then review those and we'd literally be going, change that fitting, that's too high of a pressure drop. This return fitting's got too much of pressure drop, you gotta change the fitting. I'd walk on site and there might be some sheet metal foreman's decided, well, it's a cheaper fitting, I want to stick it in, and I'd be like, you're changing that fitting. Because at the end of the day, the fan system in this example had to be designed so tightly and so close carefully because we had to meet that energy guarantee. And so we were all freaked out because we're like, we can't fix this easily after the fact. Once people are in there and they're working, that try to go and change anything is going to be impossible, right? So we got to get it right now. And especially ductwork, right? Because it's not like we're putting in small. So I'd say that was the challenging part. And it was also, like we were laid out, right? I mean, there was no way around it. Like, we just worked everything backwards. We didn't have enough time to do anything. So everyone was always behind specifications.
Aside from investing in a pouring company right off the bat, if you were to start over and be back at day one of the design, is there anything you would do different in hindsight?
Yeah. This is extremely technical, but probably appropriate for ASHRAE. So we designed the heat recovery chillers in parallel with the mag bearing chillers. And the issue is the heat recovery chillers don't have VFDs on them, so they aren't able to modulate to the same level of precision to produce chilled water temperature at the same level of precision. And so when you've got a high load in the building, it's not much of an issue because you just run your heat recovery chillers flat out, and then your mag bearings dial in your chilled water temperature. But when you hit the winter time, and now you only want to really run your heat recovery chillers because you want the maximum output of the heat side from them. Now you've got to still maintain those chilled water temperatures to deal with your MRIs and your CT scanners because they're very sensitive to chilled water temperature. And you realize that these chillers now, they're coming on and off in stages, and they can't kind of dial into that temperature. And they aren't very good at handling changes in flow either. So we've changed the design for future projects, and we've actually put them in series, but kind of with a bypass around heat recovery chillers. So I have to sketch that out for you. But I mean, that was kind of a lesson learned. So for some people to design those plans, some didn't think about it. But that was one thing for sure. Every time I look at a plan, right, we got to do that differently. So there are control strategies to kind of get around that, but they're way harder to implement than just piping it up right from the first time. I guess too technical.
I don't think there are any earthquakes in Toronto, but were there any seismic requirements?
Yeah, so I mean the interior building code part 4, right, has a formula in it that you've got to follow to determine the seismic requirements. And so if you're a post-disaster facility, even Toronto, like the hospital's a post-disaster facility, so yeah, we had to put in seismic machines. So there were, and that was the other challenge, trying making everything fit. But the good news is we had additional floor-to-floor height. We kind of, had some high floors, 7 meters for the mechanical rooms, so there was some room, but still, it's challenging because there's requirement to service it, right? So there's lots of layers, and now you gotta have seismic restraints on the house. Any other questions?
Thank you very much, Kurt. And before you run away, I was going to try to get you before you sat down. But if you could come up, we'd like to get a picture and give you a token of our appreciation. Maybe we should move. Thank you very much. As we wrap up the evening, I would like to thank the participation of everybody for coming out tonight. I would also like to thank Sheila, Alice, Daryl, and Jeff for coming from so far for driving up from Toronto today, braving the weather, and making it here, and understanding how long drive it was to make. Sheila was mentioning that we need to be focusing on our networks and connecting with like-minded people, like-minded organizations. So again, as Elizabeth had mentioned, the Student Energy group at Carleton is having an event tomorrow night if you are interested. They're focused on SDG 7, Sustainable Design Guide number 7, at the Hub Ottawa on Bank Street from 7 to 9 p.m. There's also another group that is new to the Ottawa area, and they are the Association of Energy Engineers, and the Canada East chapter is actually putting on an event next week, November 28th, and it's focused on the pathway to carbon neutrality for existing buildings. And if people in this room are interested, please do reach out to us and let us know, and we'll try to help you form these networks and these connections that will carry you to the future and see success for your future projects. And thank you finally to Tim, one of our tabletops here from S&P, and to the students who say if you haven't had a chance to go over and talk with Tim, you should ask him about ductilator, an amazing, like really bizarre word. It may look like a slide rule because realistically it is a slide rule, but in this industry, most of the people in this room use this on a daily basis, and your graphing calculator, your smartphone, realistically, has nothing on this. So do take a chance to take the time. Finally, I would like to just remind everyone that you will be receiving a survey. Please take the time to fill out that survey. The information that we collect from those surveys is really beneficial as we build programming for future meetings to make sure that we're providing something that is of value to you, something that you want to see more of. And otherwise, thank you very much once again for coming out. Our next meeting will be in January. We don't, as you know, we don't have a meeting in December as we get excited about some sort of holiday stuff going on. Thank you